Good afternoon, folks. We're back one more time. I've got another little tale, I guess, to tell you. This is about how I got started on I guess you'd say, the life I chose for the most of my teenage life and all of my adult life. Hunting and fishing has been something that's really been a lot to me. Still does. And up until I was about 14, my stepfather didn't allow me to have any kind of weapon, even a slingshot. Couldn't own it. But when I turned 14, my grandmother, bless her soul, she gave me a 22 rifle with a scope, Revelation 22, 25 shot. Had a tubular magazine, bolt action, with a little 4-power scope, and she gave it to me for a Christmas present. Well, the old man didn't like me having any kind of weapons at all. But because it was a Christmas present, he was kind of in a bind. He let me have it, but under the conditions, as soon as I messed up, he'd take it from me. Well, he never got to take it from me, because the time I did mess up, I got big enough that he wasn't man enough to take it from me. But I ended up with a 22 rifle. And thereafter, within about a year or so, working during the summer when I was out of school, part-time, I bought me a Ruger Bearcat, which is a 22 single shot, 6-shot, but single action pistol. And I learned to hunt with it. And then I also bought a 20 gauge shotgun, single shot. These are my weapons of choice. And I was a world-class, squirrel hunter. Squirrel hunting was the closest thing I could find around easily at the time. We didn't have deer back there at that time, and I just loved hunting. And squirrels, I could hunt them a whole season. Also, at this time, two things came in my life that made a big difference in it. The first was a dog, which I mentioned earlier. I called him German. He was a Sooner. He was mostly German Shepherd, and I come across him in a unique way. And he was to be in my life for about 12 years. And he was just like a brother. I mean, really was. But I was walking home one day from school, and it was about 3 blocks to my house. And a couple of other people walking with me. When this dog, which at the time I assumed he was about 2-year-old, come walking up behind us, and I turned around and looked, and he was a good-sized dog, looked mostly like a German Shepherd, and he looked friendly. And I kind of, I love dogs. And I kind of reached out at him, and he just kind of growled and lunged at my feet and grabbed my shoe, the heel of my shoe, and locked on. And everybody else ran for it. Well, for me, that was just, I guess I thought, well, he must love me. So I'm trying to shake my leg, get him loose, and he ain't letting go. But he's not really trying to attack me as much as it's like a dog that's really got a bone and he wants to play with it. Well, my shoe is what he wanted to play with. So I'm trying to drag him up the street, and the boy said, "What are you doing?" I said, "This sucker right here, if he's as smart as I think he is, if I get into my house, he's going to be my dog." He said, "You don't even know whose dog it is." I said, "He ain't got no collar on. Do y'all know who he is?" I said, "No, we ain't never seen him before." I said, "Well, if I get him home, he's going to be my dog." So off and on, he'd grab my shoe and he'd go. I'd drag him away. He'd let go and he'd grab it again. I finally got him to the house and found a little old piece of twine, tied it around his neck, ran in the house to find a can of dog food that we had left over from when I had another dog. And I was afraid he was going to take off running, because as soon as I was outside, I knew he was going to be gone. Well, I come back outside, and sure enough, there laid the rope, cut in half. I thought, dang, burning, I lost my dog. And I looked over there on the tree, and he just laying there waiting on me. I said, "Man, he must really like me." So took that can of dog food, which is about 1 pound, canned dog food, Apollo, I think Apollo's the name of it. Anyway, I pumped that can one time, and that whole wad shot out. He said, "Whoa," grabbed it in midair, boom, down it went. He swallowed a whole pound. I said, "Whoa." I said, "I don't know if I can keep this dog. He eats too much." So, but anyway, I'll tell you right now, he was a gift sent from heaven. That dog he'd done everything with me from then on. And couldn't find out. He looked like about 2-year-old, and he lived probably be about 14. So I had him a long time. He was one of the greatest hunters I've ever saw. We used him to hunt squirrels. And over a 2 or 3 year period, almost 2 3 years, me and my friends together got a red book, a ledger in there. And whenever we killed a squirrel, at the end of the day, you'd mark it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you start over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, at the end of it, pretty close to 3 years down there. Now, this wasn't all me. This is me and 6, 7 other fellas that hunted with me. And if I was working or at school, they would come by and ask if he borrow German. And German loved to hunt. And if he knew them boys, he'd go with them. And boy, he had almost 700 kills. I say kills. Somebody had killed a squirrel with him baying and treeing. He would never bark until he treed. When he treed, when you got there, he'd lock in on that squirrel. And he would circle the tree and get to the other side. Then he'd bark. And he'd run that squirrel back around. If a squirrel ran through the woods, he would stay right with him, tree at a tree at a tree. And the only way that squirrel got away is he made it to a dead tree. Because if he went 3 trees down and climbed up the tree and stopped, German would lock in on him and wait till you got there. He'd circle the tree and he'd run it back around till you shot him. If he got in a dead tree, well, that's the only way the squirrel's going to get away, because he's going to find him. Well, that's how good he was. Something else happened about that same time. The old man, my stepfather, somebody gave him a horse, a small horse. It wasn't really big. It's kind of like a Mustang, I guess you'd say, but it was pinto. It was like reddish brown and white, spotted. And had a saddle with it and everything. No man didn't care anything about horses, but he could see him making some money. He come home and told me, he said, got a horse. And I said, man, all right, a horse. But it was a young horse, 2-year-old, never been rode. And he said, you want him? And I said, yeah. And he said, it's going to cost you. I said, $200. Well, $200 about going to be $200,000 to me. So I worked all summer at a cotton mill, cleaning fixtures and stuff. I don't know what I was making. It wasn't much. But I ended up paying for the horse. I paid him off and bought it. But we lived at that time on the edge of the Easley Mill Hill. And behind our house was probably 8 or 9 acres of just woods and fields. Well, the fields come right up back of the house. And the old man did help me build a corral. Built a corral probably wasn't 25 foot in diameter. And it was about 5 foot high, wooden rails. And that's where we put him in there. Called him Blaze. Blaze was his name. And couldn't ride him all day. He was young and never been rode. So for the first 4 or 5 months I had him, I'd feed him and walk him out there and take him places to get something to eat. Because there wasn't no food in that corral. But he'd feed in the grass in the yard, in the fields behind the house. And I'd always take him somewhere and he'd find plenty of grass to eat. Buy 1 bag of sweet feed a week, and we'd feed him that sweet feed when in between, which was mixed up with types of oats and wheat with I guess it had molasses mixed in with it. So he liked the sweet feed. That fed him that. And him and the dog had a special relationship. I don't have video of this, but I'm telling you, my brother's seen it too. I can remember coming outside trying to feed him. I had a rubber bowl that I put probably 3 or 4 pounds of sweet feed in. Then I had a little bowl that I put a pound of that Alpo, dog food, just canned dog food. I put it in the bowl to feed the dog. When I put the dog food over here, I put the horse feed over here, and it's probably about 8 foot apart. And I'm going to feed them both at the same time. Well, that didn't work out, because you'd never believe it. I guess maybe it was the molasses, but the dog run over there and tried to take the horse food. He was wanting to eat the horse food. Now, this is just oats and wheats and molasses mixed in with it. But buddy, him and the horse were both fighting over that horse food. And the horse backed up and looked over there at the dog food. And I swear, he went right back around that dog, went over and grabbed hold of that dog food, started munching on that canned dog food. Well, the dog ran back over there. He didn't like it. So they fight over the dog food, then they fight over the horse food. And all I could do was lay down on the ground and laugh and roll, because this was hilarious. A horse trying to eat dog food, a dog eating horse food. But they only done that 2 or 3 times. They finally settled out. Horse realized what was his, the dog realized what was his, and they kind of let each other alone. But for the first 2 or 3 times I fed them together like that, you had that fight going back and forth, back and forth. But now, the good news is, over time, I was able to break the horse where I could ride him. When I say break him, I never rough with him. And but when he throwed me, you can't even count the times he throwed me. But I'd get back up and I'd pet him, clean, take care of him, get back on there again, he'd throw me again. And he'd done this off and on numerous times. So finally, one day, he decided to let me ride. But you got to understand, he let me ride. He was broke for me, but nobody else could get on that horse. Unless, if I was in the saddle, I could pick up anybody I want to and pull him up behind me. He'd ride, and no problem. But if I come out of that saddle, he'd look back there, and they had about 5 seconds to get off. And all hell was going to break loose. Because he was not going to let anybody else sit in the saddle. And I mean, he knew how to get you out of there. He could do it. I've seen boys that were just strong enough to hang on. And he bucked and kicked and snorted and flipped and flopped and everything. And they still wouldn't get out of the saddle. Then it was bad news then. Because he looked back there, he just come to a dead stop. And he looked back there at him. And they think they weathered it. They had run it to the ground and he wouldn't be able to throw him. He looked back there at him and I said, y'all better get out of that saddle now. Because boy, he was getting mad. And that's when he realized that he was strong, but for some reason he couldn't get that kid off. That's when, or man, whoever it was, that's when he would do one thing. He would look back to see where they was at, and he would come straight down and flip over. He would come flap to the ground and start rolling over and over, trying to crush them under the saddle, and then roll right over them. And if they was fast enough to get out from under the saddle and get away from him, the moment he'd roll once, twice, 3 times, he would roll around and come up, and he would come up onto the hind legs, and he was coming at him with them front hooves, and he was going to bury him with them hooves. He would run him down the field, when he get close to the rear up, try to hit him. It didn't take many times. Matter of fact, he got stowed twice while I was working. He got stowed. I lived easily now. And the boys that stowed him, they wasn't mean. They were just bound and determined they was going to ride that horse. And they knew they couldn't do it when I was around, so they stole my horse. Some night, they come up and got him and took him down the street, loaded him up on some chain trailer, and down the way they went. And the only reason I found out about this, I run into the fellows probably 8, 9 years later, and one of them had a partial. And he pulled it out and said, "You see this?" I said, "Yeah, what about it?" He said, "Your horse did this such year." I said, "You was one of the boys that stole my horse?" He said, "Yeah, I was." He said, "He done that when he throwed me. He kicked me in the mouth and took them 2 teeth out." And I laughed. He said, "Well, it's funny now, but it wasn't back then." He said, "You know, we left your horse," I forget where it was the first time, but the second time, almost in pickets, turned him loose. He said, "We figured you wasn't never going to get that horse back." And he said, he's back there the next morning. That horse could find his way home. If he saw how he went, wherever he went, he'd turn around and come right back. I used to take him fishing. I'd go fishing. Hawthorne Fishing Lake, a big wide fishing lake, 5, 6, 7 miles from the house. And I'd ride horseback, have 2 or 3 little rods I'd put together and I'd put them in the side behind me on the saddle. And I'd go into old paid lakes to fish for carp and catfish. That was all I had to do during the summertime. And I'd ride him 4 or 5 miles down there, and he was smart. You'd come to a 2-lane road, and had a little median in the middle. We'd walk up the side of the road, and I'd stop him, and watch cars go by. And I'd go out there to the median, stop on the median because the car was coming by. When the car went by, we'd cross on over, get on the other side, and keep going. We'd get to the lake. When I get down to the lake, probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the place didn't close like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I'd take my saddle off, put it down beside the shoreline, put the blanket on out there, put my rods out there with a forky stick, put my dough out there, fish for catfish or carp, and turn him loose. And man, he just wander off, go down the fields, he start feeding on grass, whatever. Now, whenever I wanted, all I had to do is call a blaze, and here he come. He'd come right back up there. And it'd usually be about 9, 10 o'clock at night. And he'd come, and when I called him, he'd come running back up there. I'd take the blanket, put it back on him, put the saddle back on him, tie him off, and we start home. Now, the dog was always walking on too anyway, but he would start with home. I would have the reins tied, and I could drop him down on the saddle and just kind of touch him on the side with my heels before he go left or right, left or right. And I could just sit there kind of balled over like half asleep, letting him walk home. He's just going right back the way we come. I didn't have to tell him. He knew how to get back. He came, he knew how to go back. Well, about halfway back, for the fun of it, I'd have my hand drop, I'd just drop my head down. I'd be looking out at the corner of my eyes, but I'd have my head down. And we'd walk along a little ways, but I wouldn't tap him left or right. And after a while, if I didn't tap him at all, he'd stop. He'd just stand there for 30 seconds or so, and he'd turn around and he'd look back up there at me. He'd look at me and look at me, and if I didn't raise my head up, look at him, he'd just turn right back around and he was headed home. Now, once he realized I was asleep, or he thought I was asleep, he was headed home. And up to there, through the fields he'd go, across the side of the hill. He'd get up there the highway turn and walk right down that exact way we came, right back down that highway. Where I crossed the 4-lane highway and the median's in the middle, he'd stand there and he'd watch for the traffic. Traffic goes by, he'd walk out there and he'd get on that median and he'd turn sideways. Where he could have beat him, it was only about 3 foot wide. He'd turn and he'd stand on that median till the cars went by, and he'd walk right across, get on the other side, turn, and right down that road he'd go. Another mile or so to the house, turn down there, and he'd walk right up to the corral. He got to the corral, he'd stop at the corral. And then of course, I wasn't asleep, but he thought I was. Then I'd get off and unload him and everything, put him in the corral, give him some sweet feed. But he was so smart. He would get hungry. I'd be at work or school, and this corral was like 4.5, 5 foot tall. He could stand flat-footed and just like he wouldn't run, just leap up and go over, come down. He'd go right over it. And he'd go out in the yard, wherever there's grass to feed. He's hungry, he's going to get something to eat. And he'd be out there feeding for an hour, 2 or 3 hours. And I come home, I'd tell him, I'd call, Blaze, get back in that yard. And he'd look out there, I said, get in there. He'd walk back down there and stand at that corral. I said, get in there. And he'd, pew, right over he'd go. Turn around, and he'd stand there waiting to see if I was going to bring him some sweet feed. The old man, he'd come home from work, and I wasn't there. He said, that dang horse of yours out last night. I said, well, what'd you do? He said, well, I told him to get in there. I said, he's smart. He'd walk down there and just jump over. Now, old man didn't feed him, but he'd jump in the field anyway. Back in the corral, the man told him. But here's the thing about these two, the dog and the horse. Both love squirrel hunting. The first time I ever took his horse squirrel hunting, I had a 20 gauge shotgun, and I had a 22 pistol, which is what I normally hunted with because I got good enough with it. Most squirrels I could take with a pistol. But I never, ever shot off a gun off that horseback. Because a horse, when you shoot a gun, run right out the money. Out west, I had that happen to me. But so he'd been around when it was target practice and stuff like that before, but he'd been tied off in the distance. Well, we'd shot squirrels, we'd come back and brought squirrels up there, and he would always smell the squirrels, just like the dog did. Dog would grab the squirrels, and I'd have to tell him to sit where I get the squirrel away from him. Well, the first time I actually used this horse, it was in a second growth of timbers, real thick stuff. You couldn't hardly sit in the saddle and get through it. So, dog tree down in the woods down there. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to ride a horse right up to it. So I stopped the horse and I tied him to a branch right there and took off down through the woods down there to where the squirrel was at. Well, the squirrel had got up way up there in the branch and I couldn't get a shot off with a pistol. And I had my shotgun and I was getting ready to take a shot. When about that time, that horse come flying right up there where he was at. And it scared me for a minute. I looked around, he had broke the dang branch off because he could hear the dog down there barking, and he wanted to be in on the kill. And I'm looking at him like, you got to be kidding me. Well, I shot the squirrel with a shotgun. When I shot that squirrel with a shotgun, I was worried that the horse was going to be running all the way back to the house, and I'd have to walk. But when I shot that squirrel, that horse was watching that squirrel just like that dog would. So that squirrel was bouncing coming down. When he hit the ground, that was the most comical thing you ever saw. The horse rushed it, the dog rushed it, and both of them just about at the same time got to it. The horse was trying to kick at the dog to get him away and trying to grab hold of the squirrel. And the dog was trying to dodge the horse to grab the squirrel. And both of them, one time or another, actually got the squirrel. And they pull back and forth. One get it, the other get it. The horse is smacking the dog is smacking the horse. This went on for about 30 seconds. When they finally got one, I think the dog finally hit it with it. When I got to the squirrel, it wasn't enough. You couldn't even hardly tell what it was. One of them pulling, the other pulling back and forth. So that was hilarious. But what I realized, he wasn't scared. He wanted to go to the shot. So the next squirrel that very day, the next squirrel we treated, when it was a long range shot, I had to take a shot. I took that shotgun, laid it across, right behind his ears, across his neck. It's a single shot, 20 gauge. Pow, shot. When that gun went off, that horse shot out like he was shot out of a cannon. But not home. He went straight to the tree. And around that tree, he's going, watching that squirrel coming down and trying to get it. The dog beat him to it, but he was trying to get the squirrel before the dog did. And so from then on, both of them, we never ever tied that horse off. You just jumped off, ran down to the woods to get to the dog, and the horse is right behind you. And if you didn't go fast enough, he'd pass you because he was going to that dog. That was one of the best dang pairs you ever. That dog and horse, you couldn't beat them. I mean, they together as a pair, they just worked so good together. You know, I guess for about 2 years there in Easley, there was a young cowboy running around out there. I didn't have a car, but I had a horse, had four-wheeler, 4 good wheels. He'd get me anywhere I wanted to go. And I had one of the best dogs God ever created. So that's the story about my dog and my horse. And I got more to tell later on, but that's it for this evening. So, okay, folks.